Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I have a bit of a different introduction for this video because I wanted to introduce some different art supplies that I don't normally use. For this speed paint, I am going to be painting this little gal right here. I sketched her up just on some computer paper with a mechanical pencil, but it was really light, so I copied it twice through my copier, making it darker. And I'm going to transfer that to some watercolor paper, Arches watercolor paper. Now, I was going to use a different watercolor paper for this picture. Like I did last time, I tested the Master's Touch watercolor paper that I got on clearance, but it's extremely textured and you can't really see it. Well, now you can a little bit, but it's really textured, and while I love how this picture turned out, I wasn't exactly wanting that, so I'm going to try this watercolor paper that I got for a project but ended up using a different brand. And for the watercolors, I have my little palette here, which is extremely dirty. And all of these are, can't really see it, but Winsor & Newton watercolor tubes. I just emptied out a lot in here. They are dry right now, but because they're watercolors, you can reactivate them. And it's just a lot easier than having so many palettes that I have to keep track of. And yeah, I just want to introduce the medium that we are using, so I will transfer this over to my watercolor paper and get started. Alrighty, time for the speed paint now. A little bit about this picture, or this subject, I guess. This is an OC, which I really shouldn't even say OC. I shouldn't claim her because I think I've drawn her like 3 times. And yeah, I know there's another OC that I have that's kind of like this as well. It's another fairy OC. This one, her name is Dani because she's a dandelion OC. I think when I made her, I figured that she was born from a dandelion, so that's why she wears the petals, and then her name's Dani. And then I have another OC, fairy OC, that I honestly don't even remember her name. I know she wears pink petals, but I think it's Chrissy for chrysanthemum. That sounds about right. I'm fairly sure that's her name. But again, I shouldn't even claim her. I don't draw her like at all. I never did anything. I think I designed them and went, okay, I have fairy OCs, on to mermaids, and then I stuck with mermaids. I don't have too much to say about the actual picture, but to dive in a little bit more on the materials I'm using, since that was a quick introduction, the watercolor paper is cold pressed, and it's 140 pounds, and it's 9 inches by 12 inches, and for this picture specifically, I did not go 9 inches by 12 inches, so I cut it in half and then just use the bigger half because it's actually a little bit more than 12 inches, and transferred her over onto that. The watercolors, like I said, are Winsor & Newton. I got those for a watercolor class in college, and it's really amazing how far watercolors can stretch, because I did 6 full background, full character, full size pictures, and then 9 card captor size pictures, and I still have 3/4 of the tube left, except for burnt sienna. I use burnt sienna like no one's business, and I really need to get more, but all the art shops are closed at the moment, so I do have some cheap brand burnt sienna if I really need some, but I think that's the only one that I used a lot of and am currently almost out of. And Wow, watercolors. Let me tell you. I forgot how impatient I am because markers dry almost immediately. Not immediately because you can still blend them, but almost immediately. Whereas watercolors, I was very tempted to get my hairdryer out several times because I tried to jump around a bit. So I'd do the skin and then I would do the leaves because they're not touching the skin, and then by the time that's done I could do the yellow part because the skin's dry. Even if it touches, it's fine. Though I did mess up on the leaf on the left because I didn't let the dress dry enough and the leaf dry enough, so there's yellow at the end of that leaf, but that's okay. This was just a practice round, which this was actually my second practice round. I did another painting with my watercolors, same paints, same paper, same brushes, everything. It's just a different sketch. It's from my ELO sketchbook, which isn't currently out. I think I might push the sketchbook tour ahead because I have that finished. It's in my YouTube queue, I guess is what it's called, and I can publish it anytime. It's completely done. But anyways, it was a picture of Melody turning into a mermaid at a very awful time since it's not convenient at all. And she looks kind of nervous in her little pink dress and everything. And I love the sketch. I was going to do that sketch for one of my Inktober's, but I ended up not being able to transfer the sketch properly, or it looked different, and so I never went with it. I went with a different sketch, but I tried it on there, and I think I went to, it's not realistic, but there's a lot of like folds for the dress, and then there's texture for the hair, and I think I went too hard on that one first. I needed something to kind of ease into watercolors again, besides that first one that you saw with the Master's Touch watercolor paper. And yeah, I filmed it. I don't know if I will ever publish it because, like I said, I just don't like how it turned out. Would you guys want to see that speed paint, even though it's not my favorite? Let me know below if you would. Back to this one. Had a few problems with the whole drying thing. The process I used was just layering, a lot of layering, and like I said, I would jump around. So I've already shaded the skin and added some blush, and to let that dry I moved to the skirt and kind of defined that, put darker tips on the end. Now I'm letting that dry, and I'm doing the little branch that she's kind of sitting on because I didn't want her just floating in space. I was going to use a different sketch of Dani that I had, but I just felt like it was weird. And I drew the sketch so long ago that my style has kind of changed, and so I completely sketched her over instead of using that old sketch and decided to go with this one instead. So she's kind of just sitting on a branch waiting for something to happen or watching something happen. She looks like she's watching something happen. And I just used 2 different size brushes, a smaller detail one, which I'm using now, and then a bigger one that I could do bigger areas like the leaves and I think her skirt, and just to fill in that space. And I used it later on for the background. I didn't really do much for the background because I wanted to focus on her, so I just did a simple blue wash, nothing fancy, just to let her pop a little bit more. Trying to think of what to say. I had some suggestions, which was very helpful in my last video. I think it was the Kyo video because I couldn't decide what to talk about. And one of the suggestions was to talk about the process, and then one of them was to what I could improve on or what I don't like. So for this, I'm pretty happy with it, only for the fact that I know I'm not a watercolor artist, and I'm very much, I mean, I took a class, so I'm not new, but I'm rusty new, if that makes sense. So I know I have a lot to improve on. I've been watching a lot of RinSpirit on YouTube and not watching her on Instagram, but following her on Instagram. And she does a lot of watercolor stuff. And as soon as I saw her watercolor stuff, I was like, oh my goodness, I want to watercolor like that. She does a lot of fan art for 17, and I'm not a crazy K-popper. Like, I know their names and pretty much their personalities for most of the boy groups because I prefer the boy groups. The girl groups are just too cringy, cutesy, like they're trying too hard kind of thing. Except Blackpink, they're not very cringy, cutesy. But anyways, she does a lot of 17 fan art, and that's one of my favorite K-pop groups. My ultimate favorite K-pop group is GOT7 because they're just absolutely hilarious. And like I said, I know their names and the personalities they show on camera, which could completely be different off camera. I don't know. Never met them in person. Probably won't. But 17 is so funny. I don't really have a bias or anything. I like pretty much all of them. Some I might like more just their personality, like S-Coops and Vernon and Joshua, and Hoshi's pretty funny. DK? No. Is he in a different group? I'm pretty sure he's in this group. He's pretty funny. But anyways, I'm rambling now. I watched a lot of their Going 17 and then their music videos and stuff like that. And they're pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. I actually have been into Korean dramas recently because I have so much time on my hand now. And Korean dramas and Chinese dramas for some reason. I started with Korean dramas, but I watch it on Viki, Viki. If you don't know that, it definitely helps pass the time, and I feel that it's better than American TV. So I watch a lot of it, and there's so many different dramas and genres and movies, or if you want a TV show, or if you want a webtoon, or something like that. They have pretty much everything, and they have it from different countries, so it's not just Korean and Chinese. They have Japanese, they have Taiwanese, they have a few other. I haven't watched too many of them, but they're a lot of fun. I laugh so hard. I just watched a Chinese one, and it's called Love 020, and it was pretty stinking cute. I'm watching another Chinese one, but I can't remember the name of it, but it's about this girl and this guy, and they're engaged, but they're like 17 because their grandfather said that he wanted them to end up together. So the parents of the kids are like, okay, you know what, we're best friends, whatever. Your son, my daughter. They'll get married someday. So they grew up knowing they have a fiance, but his parents died, so he went to live with his uncle instead. And so he goes to Japan for almost all his life. So she doesn't even remember him. I think they played as kids for a while, but because he moved, she doesn't even know who he is or what he looks like. And her dad dresses up like a gangster. He just has that style of a gangster. And so every time a guy gets close to her, her dad runs him off. It's like, how dare you talk to her? She's engaged. She's gonna be married. She's already got someone. Get out of here. So every time. But then he comes and he's like, oh yeah, we're gonna go out of town. You guys are gonna stay here together alone. It's cool. That's cool. You guys are engaged. Whatever. And so it's just completely opposite how he treats the guys. Coming back to the picture, because I forgot that I used 2 other art supplies that I didn't introduce because I either forgot about them or I didn't plan on using them. So the ones I forgot about were these color pencils. I didn't want to outline it with my micron pen like I normally do because I wanted a softer look to it. and I wanted different colors for different areas. So like the hair and the petals are yellow, the leaves in her hat are green, and then her skin and the bark are brown outlined. So I used the Faber-Castell color pencils, and I got these at a flea market for a very good price. I think they were like $10 or something, and I love them. I haven't done a lot with color pencil, but I really do want to do a speed paint with color pencil. I'm not normally one for texture, but I did 2 pictures, again, in my ELO sketchbook, and they're 2 of my favorites. One of them is my favorite out of that whole sketchbook, so I definitely like how they turned out when I want the texture. When I don't want the texture and they add texture, I don't like it. But because I knew I was getting texture when going into it, I was okay with it. And then the ones I forgot to mention or didn't know I was going to use was a Posca pen. I tried gel pen first, but because I was putting the white dots over color pencil, it wasn't sticking very well just because it has that texture and that waxiness to it. So I popped out the Posca pen and it worked a lot better. And I put a few clouds in the background, not that you can see them, but they're super cute. You'll just have to trust me on it. And yeah, that's all. Thanks for listening to my rambles and watching this speed paint, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.